may I invite them as well on stage. First up, we have Professor Fong Yong, Deputy Group Chief Executive Officer, Medical and Clinical Services, SingHealth. Next, we have Mr. Dean Tong, Managing Director and Head, Group Human Resources, United Overseas Bank Limited. Last and certainly but not least, we have Mr. Frank Koo, Head of Asia, Talent and Learning Solutions, LinkedIn. Now, our moderator for this panel is Professor Susanna Leong. She is the Vice Provost, Master's Programs and Lifelong Education and Dean, School of Continuing and Lifelong Education. Now let's get to know our panelists a bit more. First, we have Professor Fong Yong. Now he is the Deputy Group Chief Executive Officer, Medical and Clinical Services for SingHealth. In his role, Prof. Fong has oversight over the SingHealth International Collaboration Office, the Institute for Patient Safety and Quality, and the SingHealth Staff Care Center. Up next, as the head of Group Human Resources, Mr. Dean Tong is responsible for leading the people and organization transformation strategy across the group. He has more than 24 years of consultancy experience, specializing in talent and leadership management across Asia, Europe, and North America. Mr. Frank Koo is currently the Asia Head of Talent and Learning Solutions at LinkedIn. His team supports companies in talent acquisition, development, and retention through the LinkedIn platform and solutions. And our moderator, Professor Susanna Leong, is Vice Provost, Master's Programs and Lifelong Education at NUS, and the Dean of the School of Continuing and Lifelong Education. She is responsible for initiatives and programs on continuous education and training in the university. Now, ladies and gentlemen, you can submit your questions for the Q&A session later on via this QR code on the screen. With that, I will now hand the time to Prof. Leong. Prof.
Thank you very much, Haryanto, for the introduction. A very good morning, colleagues, alumni, corporate partners. Indeed, it's a great pleasure for me this morning to moderate this very distinguished panel. We have heard Minister Chan telling us that we need to learn, not only learn, but learn fast, and probably have to unlearn or relearn something in the process so that we can reskill and upskill, etc. We also heard the same call from our president, Professor Tan Chai. So given this reality that we have to pick up speed in terms of learning, continuously learning, our invited industry panelists this morning will share the challenges and the opportunities they are seeing on the ground as our enterprises, our organization transform and develop new skills within themselves to keep our enterprises future-proof. So let's start with the transformation in the healthcare sector. At first glance, this particular industry appears to be a story situated in the care economy. As the sector redesigns for more allied health professionals to supplement our healthcare professionals to meet Singapore's aging economy's needs. It is also a surprising story about the digital economy, in that robots and great advancement in technology now, as well as data, are necessary to supplement our shrinking and aging workforce. So, Yong, please tell us more about the digitalization of the healthcare sector and how is it transforming the work of healthcare professionals? Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Maybe I'll just take a minute or so just to give a short overview of what the organization I come from, which is SingHealth, which comprises actually the whole healthcare system, right? So I think many of you would have heard about SingHealth and some of the component healthcare facilities that is under the auspices of like Singapore General Hospital, Changi General Hospital, Sengkang General Hospital, right? So we have one corporate HQ, and within the SGH campus, there's one medical school, the NUS Medical School, right? And we also run 3 community hospitals, right? Bright Vision, Outram Community Hospital, and also Sengkang Community Hospitals. And 4 general hospitals with specialty in terms of tertiary quaternary services, which I have just mentioned, Singapore General, Changi General, Sengkang General, and also a specialty hospital for women and children's KK hospitals. And there are 5 national centers taking care of the brain, the eye, the dental, the oral health, the heart, and also in specializing in cancer, right? And we have 9 polyclinics that takes care of the primary as community care needs. And as a whole cluster, we take care of the half the population's healthcare needs, right? So it is a very busy cluster, and our staff strength as of, well, it keeps changing a little bit here and there, but roughly is about 31 to 32K in total, of which actually 2/3 are clinicians, right? Meaning about 1/3, about 11K or so are nurses, and then about 6 over K or so are actually allied health professionals, and then the doctors, 4,000 over, of which 2,000 over are specialists, and the rest are the more junior and mid-run staff, right? So you can see it's a very wide and very varied system and organization that we have, right? And of course, dealing with healthcare, there will always be the view that it is really a conservative sort of organization, right? But if you look at it, actually not really so, because I just want to share a little bit of how over the years we have actually done quite a lot of this transformation, right? And we're going to see more and more of this in the years to come, right? But having said that, we are anchored very much on values, right? So a few years back, as an organization, we have all our staff actually voted on what are the values that will best define them. We say only 3, and there's a whole suite of it. And what came out was compassion, integrity, and collaboration, all right? And of course, we know that if you have no compassion, actually there's no real reason why you should be in the healthcare system and want to serve. But integrity really is the key pillar in which we say it will engender the trust that we have between the clinicians and the patients. Of course, we know that the one-man show type of work really is gone. You need multi-D collaboration, and the whole system need to collaborate, all right? So why do I share this? Because it actually has got a lot to do with how we go about doing our transformation, right? Now, when you look at the whole healthcare system, you do transform it, the whole thing is based on what is actually the patient flow or the patient's healthcare journey, right? So I just, maybe in a simplified form, divide them into various quick phases. One is the pre-consult phase, then the consult phase, and then of course the care delivery phase, and then after that, all right, would be actually the healing phase, right? And all this has got different needs and different ways in which we can actually leverage on technology, leverage on IT, leverage on robotics to actually help us, right? So looking at the pre-consult phase now, we have actually leveraged a lot on apps, right? So SingHealth itself have this app which we are constantly still being revising called Health Buddy, right? So you can even change your appointment before that, or you can actually look at certain things that you want to find out about the cost of surgery, about the various medical health education type of articles and so on and so forth. And you can look at even your appointments and what are your medical results and so on and so forth. So that helps to empower our patient to do a lot of these things. Then come the consult phase, in which telehealth, which actually have been accelerated very much in the last 2 years because of the pandemic, actually has transformed the way how we deliver care to many of our patients who don't need to come at certain point in time into the hospital. Right. So we actually use secure Zoom to actually provide consult. But of course, that is only just one part of the whole ecosystem, right? Because you could tie that in together with medication delivery. After I see you, medicine got to get into you seamlessly, all right? And then, of course, you also need to be able to be given if you need medical certificate, there's a digital MC that we will send to your phone. And then, of course, what about payment? All right, so cashless payment is all place. You can pay in 7-Eleven, AXS machine, and so on and so forth. So the whole ecosystem has been built around now to support certain such sort of changes. Then come the care delivery. Okay, so I just use a few examples. For instance, you need to go for surgery. Now we do a lot of minimally invasive surgery called MIS, and many of these are robotic-based platform or systems. So we heard about Da Vinci platform. Then we have the Mona Lisa, which we developed decades ago, that now have been used and are commercialized. Or you may be having a condition that needs rehabilitation. For instance, stroke patients that need to be rehabilitated. We use a lot of robots to help in that sort of rehabilitation. Then if you need isolation because you have a condition that we do not want to be spread to others, especially to the staff, robots actually came in a big way, especially during this COVID period. In the community, when we take care of them, we actually use a lot of that. So telepresence, communication with them, delivering of medication. Then in general, the ward in the patients, literally everything from from the food that they eat, which in the kitchen, robotic arms are doing all the plating, to delivering of medication, notes, and so on and so forth, and cleaning of the whole place, done a lot by automation, by robotics. Right? And of course, the last phase is I call the healing phase, and this is a phase that many of us know about and keep talking about and say, why hasn't it changed? And I think it shouldn't change, because when the patient heals, not only physically, but emotionally and mentally, and you need humans to be involved. And in our approach is how can we do better in leveraging on technology, robotics, and so on, to actually give more time to the clinician to spend and focus on this phase, and so as to make the healthcare still a very strong human-to-human sort of interaction. Right? So I think many of the changes will go on, and you will see more and more of this being used, but we use it very carefully based on living labs of tests, and to make sure that it doesn't cause problems, but actually add on value and let our staff be able to concentrate on what they need to do. That is, take care of patients, practice at the top of their license, and keep themselves updated all the time. Right? So it's in a nutshell, that's what has been happening in the last maybe 4 or 5 years, and I think more is to come. Right? Thanks.
Thanks very much, Yong, for sharing the transformation that's taking place in the healthcare sector with us. It's interesting to note that the transformation that you talk about is underpinned by the values of the organization in terms of compassion, integrity, and collaboration. And I think we need to think about how human beings and robots can work better together to deliver premium quality healthcare to our people. So thanks again for sharing that with us. And I think we'll get back to you during Q&A about how, we are able to prepare the workforce, to fill these emerging roles. Let's move on from healthcare to finance. Finance isn't an industry traditionally associated with care, the care economy, and yet I think there are many priority skills across the care economy that are just as applicable to the finance sector, just like what the Provost has shown us just now. Some of these skills are actually transferable and they're interoperable. This includes conduct and ethics, stakeholders management, and inclusive practices. These are some skills that are relevant. So the finance sector is also a driver of the green economy, with MAS push to make sustainable finance a defining feature of Singapore's role as an international financial center. So Dean, UOB has a very well-known program entitled Better You, Learning and Development Program. First launched in October 2019. It is the first employee training program to be accredited by the Institute of Banking and Finance and trains employees in digital and data skills as well as soft skills. Some of the data analytics training is very happily noted by me that provided by NUS as an all-you-can-learn AYCL partner, and we are a very privileged partner UOB on that. So, Dean, can you share how is this initiative helping UOB staff embrace this increasing rampant demands that's coming your way in the banking sector?
Thanks, Susanna. Maybe let me give a bit of a background first of the industry, and then I'll talk about the Better You. The financial services industry, just like many other industries, are not spared from the digital disruption that we are seeing in the market, driven by similar forces, technology changes. Here we are talking about AI, blockchain, the automation. It is actually changing how we are actually doing work on a day-to-day basis. On the regulation side, you had heard of anti-money laundering, as well as the recent scams. There's also increased a lot of the activities and specific skill sets that's required in a financial services industry. The competition, MAS actually issued 5 new banking licenses, and therefore sort of changing the landscape as well, and not to mention the changing consumer preferences, because if they experience the digital economy in the other sectors, they're expecting the same in the financial services sector as well. So all these changes are actually redefining the market in which we are operating in. And when we actually look at UOB, we look at how do we need to survive and thrive in this new environment, that actually translate into our ability to attract talent with those set of capabilities, as well as our ability to reskill our own people with the capabilities required for the future. And in the process, retaining both groups of talent while maintaining our values along the way. So that is actually the problem statement that we have to solve. And that was when Better You was introduced. Now, what is Better You? Better You is a organization-wide reskilling program that we try to embark upon. Now, I will share with you, what it is and what some of the lessons that we learned and how we are morphing it along the process. When we first started off with Better You, because we have to touch 25,000 employees, right? So you need something that is relevant across the board. And you cannot just run a cookie cutter training program. So what we thought very hard about is that how do we get this thing started? And one of the biggest challenges that we face in the reskilling process is that, while we say that in some places like bank tellers, like stock brokers, if you will, we have seen actually the job being slowly withering away. But most of the other jobs are still uncertain. People say operations will be actually replaced in the banking sector, but we're still hiring a lot of people in the operation space. So where is the urgency, right? So this is actually not as clear-cut as it may seem. So we have to crystal ball to see what is actually happening. So our first phase of the program itself aim to sow the seed of continuous learning. So in the first courses, we have 5. The first and very first one was growth mindset. How employees should embrace continuous learning. Then comes problem solving, digital awareness, data analytics, which is the one that we are working with NUS. And finally, storytelling. Now, these 5 courses are actually very general and soft skill set that you might actually think, but it actually applies to your job immediately, and it sparks the interest for learning. Now, subsequent year to that, we launched 2 specific deep dive tracks, and these are high demand area within the firm, and we find it hard to hire from the market. The first one is in data analytics, so it's a deep dive, and the second one is in project management. The idea that we are thinking of is that over the years, we will continue to add these deep dives. It's like plug and play. But you can only bring employees so far. So in the first year when we launched the program, when an employee completes the 5 courses, we actually throw in a carrot to encourage them to finish the courses. We gave them 1 day of extra annual leave, once you have completed. Now, to try to encourage as much as possible for employee to take the first step, right? But once you start learning and you develop the habit, hopefully they will continue with that. Then the deep dives comes in, right, where you allow them to actually go deep into the areas. And if we can work with university that provides stackable programs, then this will actually help them as well. Now, currently, what we're actually thinking of is that this is still not enough. We are not satisfied with the result. It must translate into career mobility. That means people switching roles and doing some more. I mean, for the people who are upskilling, staying in a current job, we're okay with that. But for most people, for those areas where we know will be going away, to move into the sort of emerging growth areas. And we are actually launching our own internal career fair, just like what was shown earlier in terms of what are the skill set that's required. Areas such as anti-money laundering, data, including technology, the private banking area, and also ESG are some of the areas where we're actually pushing very hard to create internal mobility, because you simply cannot find enough talent in the market to fill this space. Now, more recently, we have launched a gig at UOB. So what are we trying to do here? Gig at UOB is to really tap into, and everyone knows about this gig economy, why it's beneficial, because of the flexibility, because of a potential even lower cost as well. But from our perspective, this actually complements our existing workforce. The interesting slant in our program is that we actually have a chapter for gig for retiree, right? So we're actually tapping back into our retiree workers who may want to come back to work, but not on a full-time basis, but on a part-time basis. It's a win-win. From our side, we are able to tap into the wisdom and the many years of experience for the employees. Not only do we pay them for the work that they do, but we also continue to provide them with the health benefits that many actually needs during this period. So there's actually a very interesting proposition that can actually be put forward. Now, this year, we're going to extend this program to new moms or women that have actually taken a break from their career to actually go outside of the workforce. And again, through this gig platform, we will be able to onboard them and allow them to actually work and continuously to progress in their career while they need to take some time off from the workforce full-time for the time being.
Thanks very much, Dean, for sharing. It's fascinating to hear about the Gig at UOB program and how you are, encouraging employees to stay relevant, even well beyond their retirement, and continue to contribute in a very meaningful way. I think, when we move on to Frank, you will find that, UOB has got it right. Huh? Frank, you will agree with me, in terms of addressing the number one reason why employees leave their organization. But anyway, I'm going to leave, I'm going to invite Frank now, who have a unique vantage point, I would say, over at LinkedIn. And LinkedIn data can shed light on where the skill gaps are and how big that gap is. And it is also the data that is driving NUS Career Plus app, which Provost has shared with us just now. Can you share now with us how such skills and employment data works and how individuals and organizations can better use such data to make more informed career choices? I believe you have some slides that you want to share with us. Yeah.
Sure.
Thanks very much, Frank.
Thank you, Susanna. since there seems to be quite a bit of demand on LinkedIn's data. So I thought I'll just prepare a couple of slides on some of the insights that we are seeing on the LinkedIn platform, just to whet the appetite for our conversation. Is that okay? Right. All right. So bear with me. Perhaps first of all, to set the context on where the data comes from, and I can assure you it's all legit. All right. And I'll explain this, but before I do that, can I just, by the way, by the show of hands, how many of you are already members of LinkedIn here? Oh, that's good. That's good. And virtual participants as well. I'm sure some of you are raising your hands. So that's great. So as background, we are a professional social media platform, and right now we have, including all of you here, 830 million members around the world, right? And like what Provost has shared, we provide a platform for you to experience, whether in terms of connecting with people, learning, consuming content, posting content, right? And as you do so, at the back end, we do collect some data points to support decision makers like NUS or Ministry of Education or Manpower to make the relevant decisions about careers, jobs, education, employment, and employability. So besides the members' data, we also have data related to companies in our platform, like UOB and SingHealth, jobs, the skills. We have actually 39,000 different skill types, and it increases along the way. So some of you who are putting in the skills on your profile, you see a drawdown list. If you don't see a relevant one in the drawdown list, you add on new skills, and over time, we uncovered tons of new skills, which we add into the repository all the while. And so that's how we uncover new skills, and we use it to inform policymakers, corporate leaders, as well as our learning platform to come up with new programs. And of course, we have schools across the various countries. And so this is how we actually enable the insights for some of us to make the relevant decisions. Right? And some of the high-level insights that we have uncovered over the last 2 years during COVID, and it's, to me, when I first saw this, it's a bit alarming. Right? So first of all, last year, 41% of our members are considering changing jobs. Last year, right? And in fact, and this is what I think Dean and I we talked about in Q3 last year, about Q3 from August to October, compared to a year ago. That means August to October 2021 versus August to October 2020. There's an increase of 60% of people actually changing jobs. Okay? So that's why organizations like UOP are looking to have ways to come up with ways to ensure that people can be retained productively and happily, and at the same time draw new talent. But there is a huge amount of movement in the labor market over the last 2 years. And it's not just because of retrenchments. There's a lot of people considering new roles, considering roles that are more aligned with the meaning in life and their purpose, considering joining company with strong values, like what Yong and Dean has shared, so that it becomes more meaningful for them. And we call this, some people call this the Great Resignation, but it's gone beyond that. It's actually the Great Reshuffle. People are leaving one role and moving to another. And so therefore, we realize that a lot of us, I think many of these will resonate with you here, that people are not just thinking about what they do right now, but actually why they're doing what they do. Right? So this is one of the insights that we gather that hopefully can inform corporate leaders to be able to develop a certain culture to enable people to flourish and prosper as the organization transforms. And in the area of why people are moving, like Susanna you mentioned, or why people prefer to stay in the organization, we are seeing that organizations who are able to provide opportunities for growth and development are attracting great talent right now. In fact, it's quite interesting. The survey we did last year, the people joining organizations with a strong value proposition of development and career development, it's actually moved from the ninth position 1 year ago, to number 1 position. And so this talks to people wanting to develop themselves and to evolve the skills so that they can develop their career. And therefore, a lot of organizations, we've heard from Dean and Yong as well, but many organizations are focusing a lot on upskilling and reskilling. Right? There's a lot more investments last year on upskilling and reskilling of talent than before. Right? A Better You and this future program from UOB is an example. And in fact, a whopping 94% of employees say that they would consider staying longer in an organization that provides them with development opportunities. So I think today's lifelong learning festival is really, really relevant for all of us, both not just for individuals as learners, but also for employers. And in terms of learning, Minister talked about having the school in your pocket, right? And our data also bears out. Are we seeing a lot of people moving into online learning as a means to upgrade themselves, right? Now, in fact, last year, compared to pre-COVID, there were 2.3 times more access on online learning content compared to before. And the reason is because, number one, you have no choice. Everyone is moving back home to learn. The classroom sessions are curtailed. Live workshops has gone away, and people are moving into online learning. Secondly, people need to learn on a just-in-time basis. Or in fact, sometimes people have to learn on just-in-case basis, right? Because they need to learn Zoom technology in order to be able to do a proper video conference. They need to learn adaptive skills, like how do they modulate their emotions, how do they work effectively as a remote worker. So all these, they can't wait 3 months for a workshop to be ready for them. So that's why a lot of people are going online to pick up some of these new skills. In fact, we've seen on LinkedIn Learning, the courses that are most popular, besides the deep skill ones like Python or Power BI, or adaptive skills like learning Excel, for instance. You need to submit a report tomorrow on using pivot tables. You better learn tonight, right? So these are some of the skills, but also more importantly, soft skills like communications, critical thinking, strategic thinking, and the top course is actually the 6 morning habits of high performers. They say, you win the morning, you win the day. So people are going to that. And in Singapore, in particular, Provost talked about deep learning. So there is a couple of skills involving deep learning that has really increased, grown significantly. We have customer experience, operations, data analytics, and also some of these programming language like Python, machine learning, and so on. So these are some of the fastest growing skills on the platform in Singapore last year by percentage terms. And so since I'm with eminent panelists down here, Yong and Dean, I thought I'll share some insights on the healthcare as well as the financial services industry. Now, in financial services, like Dean says, there's a lot of focus on digital skills, right? These are some of these, hope you can see, data analytics, machine learning, Python, engineering, and operations. These are the key growth skills in the financial services industry. And I think this talks of the shift towards digitalization, right, in that industry. And for the healthcare, I think Singapore is going through a transformation, as Yong has said, and therefore there's a lot more of very, very operational skills like operations, customer experience, and patient care that is very popular. So this bears out some of the comments that my co-panelists have shared. Now, and in terms of the gap, in terms of supply and demand, this it shows the index of demand versus supply. I think Provost, as a data scientist, will know how to explain this in detail. So ask him, don't ask me later on, how this is derived. But again, technology skills are key. We are seeing a huge shortage of such skills, and therefore, rapid upskilling is going to be important. So the question is, what's the takeaway? Now, for me, there are really 3. Number 1, we have really moved to having skills as a new currency for determining our career progression, for determining hiring, as well as a transformation of organizations. And secondly, there's no plug and play people in the workforce anymore. Even if you are taking on the same role in the same company, the underlying skills are different. So that's why Provost has a very fantastic idea on not just looking at reskilling, but also upskilling and also deep skilling, so that we can continue to have an evergreen path in our current career, not even next career. And thirdly, organizations that are able to provide a holistic experience for employees in terms of providing opportunities for growth, as well as having a strong culture, and ensuring well-being of the organization, ensuring that the individual's meaning and purpose is aligned with organizations, I think is going to be very successful in the future transformation of the organization.
Thanks very much, Frank, for that, for showcasing how investing in skills development is key to retaining talent, as we've seen from Dean's sharing of what UOB is doing, and the top growing skills in Singapore that we as employers should all be paying attention to. Now we move on to the Q&A segment, and I want to remind our audience that you can post your questions via the Slido app and upvote the questions that you want to address. I already have a number of questions coming in from our audience here in the room as well as online. There's a whole group of questions relating to soft skills, actually. And I think I would like to first address that and bring that to the panelists. The question is, how can we help employees develop their soft skills and cultural sensitivity? And we saw just now from Frank's sharing that in the healthcare sector, that soft skills is of great importance and significance. So perhaps I can start by asking Kok Yong this question, as there's some interest in finding out how healthcare is balancing increased use of technology, as we have seen, in terms of the delivery of the treatment and care, with the human touch that's so important in the healthcare industry.
Yeah, thanks, Susanna. So I think, as I've alluded to earlier on, that one of the key pillars actually for people to go into healthcare really is their compassion, their willingness to actually deal with people, all right? And therefore, dealing with people needs a lot of soft skills, right? So we always joke that it's very easy to deal with the computer, and if you really cannot do anything about it, you can even punch it and let it be broken, it's okay. But you cannot do that to your patient, all right? You cannot do that to your... So there's a lot of... And even if they are unreasonable, they are angry with you, you need to know how to learn to down-regulate that anger and make things work, and so on and so forth. So for a long time, actually healthcare or the care delivery and the interaction actually are based on many of these things. All right. Now, actually, this is where I would say many of our very well-trained clinicians, be they doctors, nurses, and allied health professionals, are worried about the use of technology and are worried about the use of robotics. Right? So will you take away this part that have been actually the cornerstone of very good of providing that care delivery to our patients? Right? So, which is why early on I divide up into the various sort of, and the last part I say the healing phase really needs a person. Right? So I think we need to continue to be able to communicate this to our staff. All right. Now, we have actually done a lot of thinking through about this. And one of the things we do lots of engagement, the employee engagement survey, we do pulse sensing survey, we have town halls, we actually engage our staff at all levels. And one of the things that we keep asking ourselves is, what do our staff want to do? If you join SingHealth, what is it that you want? All right. So I actually looking at all this, I actually put it into a very simple 3M. All right. The first M is they want meaning in the work. Right? And I can tell you that people will stay on because of meaning, and they don't leave an organization because of hard work. Right? So we have learned that many, many times now, over many years. So the first M, meaning. Right? And the second one, actually in our system, we want it to be a high-functioning system, is actually mastery of skills. Right? So we always tell our staff, we want you to practice at the top of your license. Right? And that means you continue to upskill, you continue to learn new things, you continue to be able to apply that in your daily work. Right? And the third one is morale. Right? And the morale is only be maintained, especially in a very fast, rapid sort of working environment, and also having to work very hard. When you can maintain the morale is because you have teamwork. People work together collaboratively and not in silos. So we do a lot of integration, we break down and so with this 3M, our approach now is to let our staff know the introduction of technology, the introduction of robotics, and of course among the doctors, especially the introduction of EMR, it has been considered a bane. I mean, causing burnout, causing a lot of whatever. But actually, it is not so, right? Because the benefits accrue from the data that we can collect, and the benefits taking away the poor handwriting of doctors who write and nobody can read, and we have doctors who can't even read their own handwriting, and coming to actually are manifold, right? Are manifold, and therefore we want to convey the message that actually we do all this is to allow you to have more time to do the work that you are trained to do, and that is clinical practice, right? Now, we have done time motion studies in the ward, in the actual situation. For a long time, we were quite surprised that among our nurses, actually up to nearly 40% of the time are spent on non-clinical type of work, right? So then we say, no, this cannot do. And therefore we define them, take it out, and get somebody else to do those, and give back more and more clinical time to the nurses to do nursing care, clinical care. Right? Same goes for the doctors. So to balance that up, needs a lot of communication, needs to build that culture, right? And then to let people know that when you introduce this, we don't introduce it because we heard this is the best. After you attended a webinar and then you come back, you're all enthusiastic and stuff. We actually have certain processes in place. And one of the key things is that we have living labs. That means you introduce in the actual situation, does it work, does it add value? If not, don't do. If it does, it helps, and we can quantify that time saved, the amount of effort saved, and so on and so forth. We introduce, right? And of course, I don't say that in front of our CFO. The money part don't really figure too much into that calculation, right? Because we see the longer term, and actually the gain actually is much more than. But of course, we cannot bankrupt the bank, right? So to speak. So we still work within our means, and being a not-for-profit organization helps. Whatever we have extra, we plow it back, and we actually do that. So that part of it, the message, the correct message is very important. That means we give you more time because we have introduced all these changes, and you need to change along with it. Therefore, you can actually spend more time to practice and do what you are happy to do because you find meaning in it. Therefore, you have more time to go for training, and therefore become even better and be a master of what you are doing. And you collaborate so as to make sure that you have a congenial and a very good working environment. And of course, I just want to add one last point, and that is many of these actually needs the senior management to role model it. Right? That is a very key point that we have found in many sort of cases. All right? So when they tell people to upskill and learn and so on and so forth, even you think you know, you also still need to go in up to date. All right? So just last week, I spent 2 days going through a course to look at how to make healthcare be a high reliability organization, right? Not that I don't know many of the things, I've read about it, but it doesn't mean that I cannot learn anything more by going there. And together with our C-suites and all that, we attended it, right? We make the time for it. We know that it's going to make us work harder on that day because other things you got to clear after office hour. But you show that if we want our staff to do that, we must be the first to role model it and convey that message. So along these lines, we want to build that culture, and that's how we balance the two, right?
Thanks very much, Kok Yong. Still on skills, our audience, whether in the room or virtually joining us, are concerned about the acquisition of skills and also the recognition of these skills. So the question that I would like, perhaps maybe Dean can shed some insight. Given that we as learners may not have the time to get another degree or even a diploma, where can we spend our limited dollars and time reskilling? What might be some of the micro-credentials that employers would recognize, given that some are transferable skills, such as customer experience and analytical skills, but they don't culminate, all right, to a degree or a diploma? Related to that, all right, and I think you can also address this, is how can we shift mindset, right, towards accepting micro-credentialing in industry and among individuals where many in the world still look towards a formal full qualification? Thanks, Dean.
So let me be very frank with you. When we actually look at filling a particular role, at the more senior and mid-level, credential is only the ticket to get you in. In fact, the incremental skill sets that you develop, that you acquire, you must make sure that you own it and you're able to apply it. It's not so much of a skills on paper, right? That play actually a lesser role, if you will. And specifically in the space of banking and in technology in banking, we're actually looking for people who have actually worked on certain technology before or domain areas. And that carries a lot more than, again, what is actually being presented as those micro skills you have. So what the message I'm trying to say is that make sure that you're acquiring skills for the right reasons and not to fill up your CV with lots of skills, but when it comes to actual applying those skills in your work, it doesn't work. Because you cannot get away with this, right? You can claim all you want, but if it doesn't really translate into actual performance and how you're applying it, then it doesn't work. Hence, just now, as Leong was talking about the soft skill, that is actually one set of skills that are very important because that really differentiate between the top performer and your average performer. Don't get me wrong, that the hard skills are not important. Those are very important specifically for the more technical side of the job. But the differentiator are the soft skills that actually will allow you to make that difference. Now, there was this question about time, right? How do you get the time to reskill? I'll share with you my personal example. I cut away the time that I spend on social media. LinkedIn, with the exception of LinkedIn. That's the only, that's the only account that I've left. Because I realized that unknowingly, when you have like Facebook or Instagram and other social media, you'll be spending time without you knowing it, just flipping through it. And I realized that while I don't contribute a lot, but you can be a quite busybody, sometimes you're checking out a lot of these things. And after taking it off from my time of the day, I've just spared an hour a day for me to actually to do something to invest in my own skill set. The other way is sleeping less, and I have also modified my time And it is not to say that, you cannot function, but I translate it into something else, which is meditation, which actually helps me self-reflect and learn on a daily basis as well. So no time is an excuse in my sense. I know we all have different priorities, but if this is important enough for you, it will show up in your daily priority, right? And you have to make it your daily priority. And from an organization standpoint, we want to make sure that when you reskill, it is relevant for you. That means it's relevant to do your job. It's also relevant in your career progression. Once you can demonstrate the application of those skill sets, then we recognize it and we will make the adjustment and the promotion accordingly. Yeah.
Thanks very much, Dean, for sharing that. Someone is actually paying attention to your LinkedIn data that you have shared, Frank. And this question is like this. I noticed from the LinkedIn presentation that many of the skills in short supply in Singapore are mostly quantitative skills. For example, data science, sales operations, capital markets, etc. Now, if I'm a history or philosophy student, what jobs can I aspire to in the future? In what ways would my thinking skills and knowledge be relevant? Would you care to share your thoughts or insights on this?
Well, I am glad to share. I just hope I don't destroy his or her future. Well, I guess the question I will ask this person is, what do you aspire to do, right? Because we know that if, let's say, you have a strong passion or certain purpose in doing something, you will be successful. And you don't really feel like you're working, right? And in fact, it's for this reason that NUS is coming out with an interdisciplinary program to provide the foundational skills and anchored to the core curriculum, as the President has mentioned, to enable students to have options, to do things that they love to do. Now, I think in Singapore, we are a bit different in the past because university used to, like Minister used to say, has said, we produce number of graduates for manpower planning and implementation purpose. That was the past. But now Singapore is developed at a time where we are building people with a broad range of skills who can, if they want, deep dive into certain areas. Right? This is really a change in the way universities are setting objectives and how our students are coming up. I'm sure some of us here have seen people in the past in the US when they graduate with a degree of Italian history, for instance, and taking on a data scientist role. If you haven't, I have. I've seen quite a number of them. Now, and therefore, learning has no limits. Learning to think, learning to have critical thinking, and ask questions is going to be key in whatever career or role that you want to play. And if you get a role that is aligned with your purpose or meaning, as Kok Yong has said, you don't have to work a single day.
Sure.
Something very specific to this. I came from a consulting background. If you have a critical thinking, in fact, I actually admire people who do philosophy and history as a major. I used to think that it's not practical, but as you grow older and hopefully wiser, you realize that that's actually the most important foundation to really help you live your life and to think about it. In fact, in the consulting space, they're actually looking for people from across discipline, people who can actually apply critical thinking and come in to solve problems. You will pick up the hard skills along the way, and they give you the platform to learn. And if consulting is not right for you, UOB, we're also looking for people with critical thinking. Right? We are always open door to that. Yeah.
Thank you. Kok Yong, anything to share?
Yeah, maybe also, I think this is one of the things that actually occupies many of our minds. Can you move from one profession, so to speak, to another, all right? So I think we have actually gone over the stage, and I think people moving across is actually quite common. The first time when I actually came across this was actually many decades ago when I was attending a course before I went for my medical master's exam, all right? And the speaker who came by to taught us he was telling us all about immunology and whatever. And then at the end, when we asked him, what is your background? He said, my background, actually, I started out as an anthropologist, right? He studied bones, he studied people, whatever. And then one day he decided, actually, I think maybe I can help people. I want to be a doctor. And that's how he actually changed and totally different together. And which is why I was very glad when we have a dual NUS medical school that came up, that we have people who actually change their long-term career and say that, oh, this is not what I want to do, but what the skills actually I can be used in the medical setting. I give you one very specific example as was sharing that, it came to my mind. I was helping in interviewing some candidates for dual NUS medical school at one time. And when I asked this person, what are you doing? He said, I'm a helicopter pilot, right? So with the Air Force, all right? So I said, why do you want to become a doctor? He didn't tell me that he wanted to help people. He said, because as a helicopter pilot, I learned how to look from up there, around and big, and therefore I want to come and contribute and change the whole health system. There's a lot of issues that things are not being done in the correct way, sort of thing. So I thought, wow, this is a new way of looking at that. And I thought, yes, this one can be recommended into because I haven't checked back whether he have graduated or not, but I think should be soon. But what this shows that actually, if you want to do it, actually the skills can be transferable, right? Because now you say going to a medical school doesn't mean that you come out to be just like a doctor, but many other things you actually can do. All right. One more quick last point. Actually, let's say someone who has got history and philosophy and that type of thinking skill, actually in the years to come is even going to be more important, right? Because actually many of the things that we are doing actually need a counterpoint to it in terms of governance, right? Now, I actually helped to chair one of the advisory committee with MOH, right? And one of the things that I went there, the first thing that I did, I said I don't really know what this is being done professionally because it is something very technical and all that. But what I know is that if people need this care, how do we make sure that it is equitable? So I said, first thing, I want to have a bioethicist in that committee. In fact, I want to add more to it, all right? Because of that, because the thinking is different, right? The thinking is different. So someone with that can actually add value to many of the things, right? And when I look at how IT is being used, AI is being used all across the board, right? There's a danger to it. Sometimes we go overboard, and you need a counterpoint, there's someone to tell you, actually, this shouldn't be the way because history had told me that this is going to leading to disaster. And therefore, stop here, there's a framework and whatever, and so on. And I can tell you that within the healthcare system, we will need more and more such skills to come in. And we are looking at it at the various of the levels, and at what point do we now introduce them in the appropriate way so that it doesn't hinder, but yet at the same time, just like a train can only travel fast and well when it's on its tracks and not outside the tracks. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think it is very good news for history and philosophy students, and I'm really gratified to hear that. I think we have quite a number of HR colleagues in the midst of our audience, and then so a number of questions from them. But perhaps I can frame this question, and I pose this question to all three panelists, which is, what can we do to influence employers to help employees upskill themselves while juggling work demands? Particularly older candidates willing to upskill themselves. In fact, there is someone that had posted in the Slido app that an article mentioned, I don't need more courses, I need to clone myself. How might we encourage continuous learning when there is a continuous barrage of work? So, so from that perspective, how can we, all right, influence employers, all right, to really encourage our employees to upskill? And then how can we help employees to take control of their own learning careers, especially when there is so many emerging, all right, economies and new job roles that are coming in the green, digital, and care future economies? perhaps just, anyone, any of the panelists would like to
Well,
just
maybe I
give a
should first take a first step on this.
Sure,
if you
thanks.
don't mind. I think all of us who are learners, I believe all of us are active learners, know that learning happens best when there's a need. Right? I mean, educators call it the intrinsic motivation or the extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation because we really want to learn. If let's say we are feeling a bit anxious, maybe we want to pick up a meditation, for instance, just to make sure we calm ourselves down, right? Intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, if you aspire to be a data scientist like a Provost, right? This motivates us to learn. So I think when there is a aspiration to do something, when there's a need, you learn best. So I think at the individual level, this is how we decide, right? Now at the corporate level, it's also the same. Organizations are either right now a digital company or a digitally enabled company, right? Transformation is happening. As a leader, what do we want our organization to be in 3 years' time? And that really is a need for us to see how we can actually upskill or reskill our existing workforce. So based on these two, then organizations need to make sure that they provide some time, right, for learning, number one. Number two is that you need to build a trusted environment, right? Meaning that people learn, they may not do the job well, they may fail. What happens to employees when they fail on something that they just picked up? Do you punish them or do you reward them for trying? So this goes to organizational culture where our leaders need to really seriously think about. It's not just about giving time to learn, but also creating a culture that enables learning. And of course, thirdly is to really provide some time for people to have, let's say, time off. No meetings days, right? Learning days. Enabling the middle management to have a learning circle, right? So that the whole organization can learn together. Individually, there's a need for people to really think about how do we allocate your time. Dean talked about how he reallocated his time to learn. All of us are in the same journey. I mean, we can always, if you think about it, we can always take time away from certain things and move this into learning. Most importantly is to really have a growth mindset in all of us. Once we develop that, you'll be not so difficult.
If I may just build on what Frank have said, building a learning culture. At UOB, in October, we're going to have our 4th anniversary of the Better event. Better U event, or we call it festival, is like a learning festival similar to what you have here. But we are building it so within the organization. So there's a huge fanfare, if you will. We convert our foyer between our 2 buildings into a bit of a party atmosphere, but really to try to encourage our staff to actually pick on some of the new skills. And we are going to resume the in-person event this year. So we didn't even stop during the pandemic year, but we did it sort of virtually. But this year we are going to bring it back with a bang. And it is back to your point about creating the culture for learning and for making mistakes. So within the organization as well, we are also creating opportunity for stretch project. Now I mentioned about the gig at UOB. That was actually a project that was done at the free time of the employee. No, it didn't come out from HR, but we actually pulled people across the organization who wanted to do something beyond their normal day-to-day activities to actually work on it. And they can experiment, they can make mistakes. They are also the one who presented it to senior management to actually get the final approval. Now, the final point that I want to address is how do we help employee with the time? I would say this is a two-way street, if you will. From an employee side, we have to make sure that we cannot overload the staff, because that will actually contribute to the great resignation that you mentioned. And that's something that we're mindful. Not to say that we're perfect, but we're mindful about it, and we are constantly actually looking at it. And from the employee side, as I mentioned before, on the personal side, you also have to look at your personal priority. If learning is important enough for you, you'll find space in the day for learning.
So I would just want to echo what Frank and Dean has actually said. And I think for SingHealth, just to share quickly our experience, that actually about 3 years ago we've decided that we are going to be a learning organization. Right? So that means the whole culture needs to be there. And we put and change things to make sure that we ensure that this will actually come about. It's going to be a long-term sort of ongoing journey, but going to start somewhere. Right? And it's for all levels of staff, and the same issues keep coming up. I've got no time, I don't know what I'm going to do, and so on and so forth. So for each and every of our staff, every year, we have actually a learning needs analysis. Right? So there are a whole lot of things that they actually can learn to help what they are going to do, or if they want to learn something else outside is fine. Right? And the purpose is twofold, so that they will have to think about what else can they learn, and also to help the organization, the budget for what is needed, so that they can actually go for this. Right? The second thing is to address the no time. So sometimes no time can be a personal sort of issue, and we have come across staff who are not willing to leave because they are afraid that after they are not there for a while, maybe they will lose their job and their post, and somebody else can perform better. And these are very real issues that we need to actually address at the unit or departmental sort of level. But more importantly is that actually, if we rearrange things, actually time can be found, right? And one of the most effective ways is if we put this as part and parcel of a performance appraiser with the heads of the units or heads of a department, actually things would change and things would move. Right? People will allocate their time, reschedule things, roster things better, and then the staff can actually now go for upskilling courses, learning new things, and so on and so forth. Right? So at the senior management level, we do look at across the board, what are some of the skills that we all need, that we need people to learn, and therefore even nominate people to learn those skills so as to start that change process. So it is all across the board, but it starts off with our first step that we decided that we need to be a learning organization. Right? I think without that, it would be quite difficult to actually start even where to start and so on and so forth. Right? And after that, then you put in place all our needs and all our structures and policy and procedure. And just last year, we have even formed now from a committee upgraded to a dedicated unit with staff running to look at what is the future workforce going to be like. That means future workforce unit. And here we're talking about the healthcare workforce and working with all the domains to look at not only horizon scan, but also predict what are the skills that we need, and therefore now start to put in place those opportunities for people to learn and to actually, when they grow old, they can still contribute. And when they grow old, when they say physically, I may not be so strong in doing that, then they can actually lean more on robotics and so on and so forth to actually help them. Because age to us is not an issue, right? Because we have accepted the fact that our staff is going to actually be, as the whole of Singapore is going to age, and therefore we need them to continue to contribute, and we look at how to facilitate that change from what they're doing now to maybe in the next 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, and so on and so forth.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think, this has been a really interesting conversation. I think we can go on for some more, but we have run out of time. Just to summarize, I think we need our organization enterprises to have a learning culture and to be learning organizations. And we need our individuals, our workforce, to have a growth mindset and to be very self-aware of what the new, emerging job roles and how we can acquire skills, and knowledge to fill those job roles. And that we here in NUS, looks forward to partnering with organizations and enterprises so that we can journey with our learners and help our learners contribute continuously in a very meaningful manner so that they will always remain competitive and relevant. So on this note, let us all thank our panelists, Yong, Dean, and Frank, for your valuable sharing and leaving us with so much food for thought, but we are going for lunch. Before that, all right, we would like to show our appreciation with a small gift from the university. Our colleagues, please. Thank you. Thank you very much, Zira. Thank you. Now we turn the time back to our MC, Haryanto. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prof. Now, thank you for the valuable insights and perspectives. Can we give another round of applause to our panelists, Professor Fong, Mr. Koo, Mr. Tong, and of course, our moderator, Professor Leong. We'll now like to invite them back to their seats. Thank you. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you're leaving us at this time, we would like to gather your feedback on this morning's session. Now, do submit your feedback via this QR code. Now, if you are staying for the master classes this afternoon, you can scan the QR code later on and submit your feedback at the end of the day. Now, after lunch, we will have a talk by Ms. Shalvin Loh, the Director of Jobs, Skills, Insights Division in Skills Future Singapore. And after that, we will have a series of masterclasses on skills needed for the new economies. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we will now break for lunch. You may proceed for lunch at level 1 at the NUSS Guild House. Now, we will have ushers to direct you to the venue lunch. It's the building just beside this building. So all you have to do is just head down to level 1 and then go on to the next building. Have a good lunch. We'll see you back here at 1:20 p.m. See you then. Bon appetit.